first ballot Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. How are you, John?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
You bet. As always, what does pitchers and catchers report mean to you? What's your favorite? What does that mean when you hear those words, John?
You know, for all those years that I used to look at the guys before me, like Nolan Ryan, 27 spring trainings, whatever it was, some ungodly number, I used to think, how many spring trainings can I go to? And each time we showed up, will I have my fastball? Because you go through the years we did in the postseason and all the lack of rest and all that. And every year I would come to spring training just going, okay, I've done my work. Do I have my fastball this year? And lo and behold, every year I would have my fastball. So those are the things a pitcher thinks about from time to time, besides the normal, just I want to be healthy. But it's the first 2 weeks, no matter what you've done, where you've done it, it's different when you get there. And for a lot of guys who don't have the luxury of training outdoors, it's a big difference from the indoor workouts to the outdoor workouts.
So just showing up. I love how you mentioned Nolan Ryan. Did you ever wind up in a? I mean, who were you in a spring training camp with early on that you looked at and like, wow, okay, that's an all-time great. I'm going to learn from him, or just any story that you have from back in that day?
You know, I was always admiring the guys. You know, we had early on when we were trying to be young and trying to figure out how to win. We're losing 100 games every year. There wasn't a lot to look up to when you're going to spring training going, gosh, can we finish anywhere but last? Then guys like Charlie Leibrandt, Terry Pendleton, Sid Bream, veterans that had won somewhere else that you could just pick their brains, that they would have, you know, the ability to give you insights. That's what I gravitated towards. I wanted to know what it was like to win. I never thought we were going to win for the longest time. And then getting a taste of that and being able to pass on the baton to the younger guys and just knowing the ins and outs of spring training as a veteran, knowing you didn't have to make the club, you're just working on your craft. And then not to mention we had the greatest spring training in the history of baseball and the greatest managers. So getting there, knowing your tee times were a certain time, getting to play, 36, 18 holes, get your work in, get your work out, and go have fun the rest of the day, whether it's at Magic Kingdom or making birdies somewhere on a golf course.
So now, did Bobby Cox really match things up with your tee time, John? Did that actually happen?
Oh, here's his. So think about. Look, I watch films today, even on our network. I've seen workouts from players and clubs that I have no idea what that is. None. Never ran with parachutes, never jumped hurdles, never did any of the things, never picked up a tractor tire, never did any of those things. And we just kept it to the nuts and bolts. Bobby said, get in, do your work, and get out. If you're diligent and you do the things I've asked you to do, go have fun the rest of the day. I'm not going to keep you here for nonsense. And it was brilliant. And anybody who came from another team, it took them 2 weeks to get over the fact that they said, seriously, this is all we get to do? We don't have any of these time killer stuff? And we would tell them, do your work. Most of the work that we got done was where nobody saw it, in the training room, in the weight room, in the cages. Then we'd go out and throw for our limited time, and we didn't stay and shag like, to kill time. And then we got in the car, went to a course, and had the time of our lives.
I love it. So you're looking at some of the spring training exercises right now, wondering
I just laugh.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with baseball. I mean, the training that guys are doing today is so, in my opinion, over the top and not sports specific. It's why injuries are at the highest level. It's why these guys look like they should be on some bodybuilding show instead of standing on the mound or standing at home plate. The bodies are phenomenal. And I wouldn't say a word if the injury rate was cut in half, but it hasn't. It's gone the other way. And so when you're lifting a big, huge tractor tire, what part of that has anything to do with baseball? At no point do you ever simulate or duplicate that motion playing baseball. But there's smarter people, I guess, than me out there that are hoping to play half of the spring trainings that I've gone to and think that that's good enough, I guess.
John, you sound like another Hall of Fame Atlanta Brave, just a different Hall of Fame, and Deion Sanders. He says every year at the Combine when they show the defensive backs try to lift 225 in the weight and reps room at the Combine, Deion laughs and he goes, I don't understand why they make them do this. He said, I never had to put Jerry Rice across my chest and lift him 10 times.
He's exactly right. And I think, we've evolved in a smarter generation. There's no doubt. There's more knowledge. There's more technology. Guys are bigger, stronger, faster. But we have not adapted to the sports specific items that you need to be for a particular position. You might be able to get away with it if you're an offensive lineman, defensive lineman, but to Dion's point, a specialty position that creates quickness, speed, and agility. Same thing with pitching. Pitchers never have looked the way they have looked before, but never have they not lasted. I think that's something we keep turning a deaf ear to. And you know why we do it? Because the philosophy of there are more coming and we can just replenish the deck. Well, I'm here to tell you that at some point, that point of no return is going to happen. And clubs are going to have to go back and refigure out how they're going to redevelop their farm system and their ball clubs to last the entire year instead of this shuttle back and forth with young minor leaguers that come up for 2 weeks and eat up those innings that the other guys can't.
John Smoltz here on the verge of pitchers and catchers reporting in baseball. Is there a collusion issue, do you think, John? Is there what? Because, we're seeing a bunch of free agents that are not signed. Baseball had to put out a statement about a week ago saying this is just normal business practices. What do you think is happening in the fact that
there's a couple things. Never have we seen the amount of teams going in severe opposite directions. When you unload your young talent, controllable talents from 3 different teams, you're clogging the free agent market because it's cheaper to get those guys than it is to spend that money on what you normally would to add on a great player that makes a difference in your team. Some of these guys have already turned down some pretty good contracts looking to get more. More years, more money is not out there right now for the sense of, I talked about being smarter. 7- and 8-year contracts just don't typically work, or they haven't. And some of the injuries that we talked about, you get a point of no return once you get that late in the contract and the team is in a different direction. So I think it's a perfect storm, unfortunately, for players that all have fallen into this boat, and some have misread the market from their agent standpoint. And, let's face it, some have turned down some pretty good money already thinking they were going to get more. So not all of the players are locked in the same group, but some of the marquee guys that we would have expected to already go, like a J.D. Martinez or Jake Arrieta or some of those, in the past years, it wouldn't have taken this long. So, look, it is truly a perfect storm. I don't think collusion, it's an easy word to throw out there because it's happened in the past, but I don't believe taking the emotions out that's the culprit.
And pitch clock. What's your take on this? We're seeing it, right? This is happening, and we're going to see it. And how's that going to manifest itself this season?
Well, first and foremost, everything that's coming down the pipe is enticing the players to just play the game a little faster because they've played it to a dull roar. It's not the game we once used to see. And no, there's too much information. There's too many pitching changes. This is only going to make such a small dent. Players are not going to notice this once they get accustomed to it. It might affect 2% of the entire players in the game who physically might not be able to throw a pitch in 18 seconds or less. And that's just kind of going to have to be too bad. You're going to have to learn. You're going to have to adjust. There's nothing that will affect the game short of changing the ball, changing the equipment, and changing the bats. We talk way too much about these kind of changes. For the good of the game, players will adapt. Players are always going to be great at whatever they do. They're just going to find whatever it is that makes them comfortable. And these kind of things have been too comfortable, have been too long coming, that the game and the crux of it is, look, all these might shave 3 to 5 minutes off of a game time, which is important. But the reality is if you allow teams to make 9 pitching changes a game, and have these mid-inning pitching changes happening between 2 teams, that is where the game slows down. At some point, we got to figure out a way to affect the strategy of the game in mid-inning pitching changes because as you see an all-star game or you see the amount of pitchers that pitch in an all-star game, granted it's an exhibition, when you have 9 or 7 different pitchers pitch an inning and finish the inning, the game doesn't slow down at all. And so even it's not about how many pitch per game, it's how many come in the middle of an inning needlessly. One batter at a time not getting an out or not fitting. The the seventh inning of the famous Washington Nationals Dodgers playoff game. I think it was an hour and 45 minutes.
Ugh.
I mean, that can't happen. And granted, that's the playoffs, but it's happening so much in regular season games. I think the commissioner looks long-term to say we've got to make sure that fans are not turning their attention to something else because the games are lasting too long.
And lastly, John Smoltz, I'm loath to ask this because, obviously what Houston had happened to it last year was a perfect storm that required Justin Verlander to be acquired late season. But is it a Yankee-Dodger prediction going into the season for you, John?
No, I don't think so at all. I think that the Astros have gotten better. I think everything that they did last year, the necessary moves they made certainly spoke for itself, winning a world championship. They went out and addressed their issues and got better. It's going through Houston, no matter what anyone says. They're the team to beat, but there's some really good teams. Everyone's forgetting about Boston. Boston did not have David Price last year. They're going to have him this year. They've got Chris Sale. Yes, could they add an offensive punch to their lineup and make a difference? That time will tell. The Yankees no doubtedly have one of the sexiest, most intriguing lineup, period, to watch, but there's swings and misses in that lineup. So it's going to be a great American League campaign, not to mention Cleveland and the likes of Minnesota. So I think anybody would say that Houston has gotten better. Houston's the team to beat, and it's going to be fun to watch these guys go after it. And in the National League, do not sleep, in my opinion, do not sleep on the San Francisco Giants. No one's given them any thought at all.
That's true.
That they can be back in the mix with the Dodgers. I personally think they will.
Why?
I think that last year, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Bumgarner's injury, and again, the health of him is going to be so important. They address some of their outfield needs. Everyone's assessing the San Francisco Giants as old. These are analytic people who push numbers through a computer determining age. I just once want to go up to one of these guys and go, your shelf life on computer is about 3 more years. Get it done. They don't understand what a club goes through and the injury aspect of it. Yes, trends point to San Francisco Giants going into wrong direction, but they're a proud organization. They've addressed some needs. They've got Longoria, McCutchen, Jackson. They made an addition with some pitching. I think, again, the San Francisco Giants are going to sneak up on some teams and be right there in the playoff mix.
Exciting. This is all great, John. This is all great. I love our chats, as always. My guy, Chris Brockman's a big Red Sox guy. You know I'm a Yankee guy. The odds that the Yankees at some point this season, last one for you, will have a 10-run lead over the Red Sox at any point during the season in any game. What would you give the odds on that? Because we're trying to figure out what we should place on the line for
a 10-run lead in one game?
At any point, correct. You think?
Yeah, I think, with the way that things can go awry, those odds aren't as high as you would think because they got such offense. They're going to beat up on bad pitching. So there's going to be times where in this great rivalry that's coming back, by the way, the Red Sox and the Yankees, I think, are officially back as that rivalry that we all came to know. I would say they're 10 to 15 to 1 where that could happen if the game gets away from the Red Sox because of the offensive power that the Yankees have.
Okay.
So it's not as high as one would think. I think there's a chance that could happen.
John Smoltz playing the role of Danny Sheridan in this situation between me and Brockman. Great chatting with you, John. We'll chat again soon, hopefully.
All right, you got it.
Thanks again. That's John Smoltz, MLB Network, Fox Sports.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.